Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 16.1.1 to the public. iOS 16.1.1 released to everyone everywhere around the world at the exact same time. So if you have an iOS 16 supported device from the iPhone 8 all the way up to the 14 Pro Max, you should be seeing this update. And if you're not seeing it, you can find it by going to your settings, going down to General, then Software Update. It will check for an update and you should see it there. If you're not seeing it, go into your automatic updates, turn those off, go back, check for an update, and you'll see it in your updates. Also, if you're a beta tester, you won't have this update as you're actually on a newer version. So if you wanted this update, you'd actually have to downgrade. Removing the beta profile will not show this update since you're on a newer version of iOS 16.2. Now this came in at 356.4 megabytes. That's on my iPhone 14 Pro Max and was pretty small on all the devices here. And as you can see, it says this update includes bug fixes and security updates and is recommended for all users. Along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 16.1.1 and macOS 13.0.1. Also, the public betas of iOS 16.2 Beta 2 and the other betas that released yesterday is available now as well to public beta testers. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go to Settings, then General, then About. You can see the build number is 20B101. This update, like I said, includes improvements and bug fixes. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And there is not a modem update in this update. From iOS 16.1 to 16.1.1, you will have no modem update. So there's no changes there with cellular connectivity or anything like that. Now, the first new feature or change in this update has to do with Apple Wallet. If we go into Apple Wallet, within Apple Wallet, if you add a card and then go to driver's license and state ID, you'll see there's a new option for Colorado. You can add a Colorado state ID or license, and that's available now. It is not available on the beta version of iOS 16.2. So if we go into that, it's only on iOS 16.1.1 released to the public today. So you won't see it on the beta. But that's nice that they've added this. If you've been wanting this in your state for some time, it's now available. Now, if you have an iPhone in China, they've made an update as well. I had someone on Twitter send me a screenshot of this, and they've updated their settings. So if you go into Settings, we go to General, then AirDrop. Under AirDrop in the United States and in most places in the world, we have Receiving Off, Contacts Only, and Everyone. However, within China, it's been updated to Everyone for 10 minutes. Then it will revert back. So this is something that apparently people are seeing in China, just not around the world. So if you have it shared to everyone for 10 minutes, it will revert back for security reasons to Contacts Only or Receiving Off. So that's something that's been updated. I've had a few people report that. If you're seeing that elsewhere, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. One thing we're not seeing in this update is satellite connectivity. So that's something that we've been waiting for with the iPhone 14 devices. So far, it doesn't seem to be in this update. In the iOS 16.2 betas, it looks like they may be adding that under location services and then system services. However, there's no satellite update here, and it looks like that's something that's not available yet, at least in the United States and where the iPhone 14 is supported. So maybe we'll see that in a future update. As far as bug fixes, well, there's two that we know of. However, Apple hasn't specified this 100%. They did say that they would fix the Wi-Fi disconnect issue. So many people were having issues with Wi-Fi dropping over and over, and this was an ongoing problem for a lot of people. That has seemingly been fixed. However, it will take a few days to know that for sure, as many people have different routers and different setups at their home and offices and businesses. So we'll have to see if it's truly fixed, but we'll have to see if they've resolved that along with other connectivity issues with Bluetooth and more. Also, there was an outage with an ad network bug. So if we go into Safari, you can see here, there's no longer a system status bug for this. It was SK ad network. They've now resolved this. It's no longer here. And it actually said before that it would be resolved in a future update. So it looks like they've actually resolved it. It's no longer listed in their system status page. So that's something I mentioned yesterday on my iOS 16.2 Beta 2 video. Now, as far as additional bugs, well, there's still some things that could be within the OS. I've had some people report that the overall issue with the screen flickering on the newer iPhone 14 models when the brightness was set low has been resolved. It was resolved a while ago. I haven't heard a return of that with this update. And also, I've had some people say that they're still having some storage issues where it seems to be using excessive storage in their storage settings. I haven't seen this. You can see I have 98 gigabytes of 512 used. And if we scroll down, the iOS system itself is using 9.49 gigabytes and the system data is 4.77. This can vary depending on the apps you're using and much more. But again, we don't really know if this is something that will be fixed, as it can take a few days for this to sort of figure out everything, process in the background, index everything, and then complete. But it does seem to be a little bit better with this update, at least from what I'm seeing here. As far as other bugs, I haven't really heard from anyone else as far as bugs in this update, but I have heard that sometimes swiping home can be a little bit laggy still. I haven't experienced that yet in iOS 16.1.1, but maybe on older phones you could be seeing that, but I'm not seeing that here. Now with this update, we also have security updates, as I mentioned before. And if we go to the Apple Security Update website and scroll down, you can see it says iOS 16.1.1 and iPadOS 16.1.1, as well as macOS Ventura 13.0.1. So if we go into this, it will tell us what they've fixed. And it looks like they've fixed two issues. And it says Library XML2 is what they seem to have resolved, and the impact or the problem was a remote user may be able to cause unexpected app termination or arbitrary code execution. To fix this, an integer overflow was addressed through improved input validation. And so the same thing is here as well. There's two different CVE numbers, and also it gives credit to who helped them find this and resolve it. So that's been updated with this update. Something else I wanted to mention that wasn't in settings before, once I rebooted, I had this quickly find a setting. This is something that I've seen before, but it just popped up on this iPhone for some reason, and it's just telling you to slide down on the settings page to get your search box. So something I've seen before, it popped back up with this update. Now, as far as battery life takes a few days to measure. We won't know for a few days if it's really good or any better than it was with 16.1. Many people said that iOS 16.1 fixed many of their battery issues. However, being that this was just installed, we'll have to use it for a few days to really know. You need to use it a full day or two to know how the battery is over time, as it has to process a bunch of things in the background. So that's something we'll have to wait and see. But again, I'll have a follow-up like I do every weekend talking about battery life, any additional bugs, and more. As far as the overall performance, it's been fast on this device so far. Of course, it's one of the latest devices. I haven't really noticed any issues here or on other devices as well. Scrolling with ProMotion is super fast, going into apps such as music as you would expect. Scrolling and things like that hopefully will be much better, as I've had a lot of disconnect issues with iOS with music. But so far it seems to be nice and fast. It's working well. Going into the camera is nice and fast. And iOS 16.2 resolved that camera bug where you would go into the camera and you couldn't swipe up to go back. All of those things seem to be working better, and 16.1.1 does not seem to have those issues. As far as the overall heat of the device, this is staying nice and cool, and I wanted to show you that with a thermal camera. It's barely warm at all to the touch, maybe even cool down here to the touch. So let me show you that. Now, as you can see with the FLIR thermal camera, the hottest area appears to be about 87 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit, so about 31.1 degrees Celsius. So it's staying nice and cool overall. It actually just gets warmer from me touching it. As you can see, there's my hand at 89 degrees Fahrenheit. So as I move my hand out of the frame, sometimes it will get a little bit warmer, but it's still fairly cool to the touch, which is a great sign. Now, as far as overall benchmarks, it actually scored pretty well compared to 16.1. You'll see we have a score of 1,879 for single core, 5,492 for multi-core. And if we go into the history, you can see here, this is iOS 16.1 on October 28th. It's pretty close as far as the overall score. So it's a little bit lower for single core, but higher for multi-core. Typically within 100 or 2, it's going to be fine, but it's nice and fast, and the benchmarks have actually improved a little bit, and that's pretty good considering that I just installed this update and it's still nice and cool. So I'm expecting this to be much better. Hopefully it's much better with battery as well. And that leads me to, should you install iOS 16.1.1 and update your iPhone with it? Well, if you're not on a beta, absolutely. You want to get those security patches installed, that Wi-Fi bug fix as well, and other issues that hopefully are there that Apple's just not telling us about. Maybe they'll fix some other issues that they didn't tell us. Maybe there's things with Bluetooth they've resolved. I wish they would actually explain more about that, but so far they haven't told us any more than I've already shared with you. So definitely I would install this. And then of course, we're waiting for iOS 16.2 to release as well. That will have new features and more. So if we go into the calendar here, you'll see yesterday we had iOS 16.2 beta 2. I would expect beta 3 either next Tuesday or so, or probably the week after that. That's typically what they do with early betas every other week. And then as we get closer and closer to a final release, we have weekly betas. I would expect a final release probably in the second or third week of December, since people take vacation around that time for the holidays. So probably the week of December 11th is when I would expect it, but we don't really know for sure as Apple hasn't said. With that, I would expect satellite connectivity and more. And so that's everything in iOS 16.1.1. It's just mostly a small update with a couple little features, bug fixes, and security updates. Let me know if you've installed it already or if you're waiting for iOS 16.2, or maybe you're on an older version or the betas. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.